Traffic, clear runway 05.
This is the story of our 30-year journey to create a solar-powered hybrid aircraft able to connect remote areas with the outside world. And that's why we're organizing this campaign to raise money for our first mission to remote areas, the first medical mission. One of the great problems of our time is how do you deal with the world's remote areas? They are 235 times bigger than California. They have 1 billion people, and they have no year-round transport system. Why are remote areas important? Because they are home to most of the world's species, most of our languages, they house most of the world's minerals, and they produce most of our oxygen. And yet they have by far the highest death rates in the world. No transport means we are cut off from these crucial places, and they are cut off from the benefits of the global community.
60 kilometers an hour.
Here we go, beautifully done, beautifully. Look at that, guys.
This problem started to hit home a lot more around a medical issue and being cut off from medical cargo. I was in a remote area in Madagascar and contracted malaria and almost died. And in Michelle's case,
I lost my brother, also due to a medical condition.
there are 3 things we need to achieve technically in order to start to be able to save lives. The first thing is we need to be able to build a flying machine that doesn't need infrastructure. There is no infrastructure in these remote areas, so we need to be able to land in a soccer field. And this is something that you can find in virtually every village, and they're very well maintained by kids. The second thing is we need to be able to operate without fuels. Fuels are often not available. When they're available, they are both very expensive and they're very low grade. A lot of the time you get diluted fuels which are not safe to fly with. And they're expensive. You can find fuel prices up to $1,000 a barrel in a lot of places. The third thing is to maintain cold chain. So vaccines need to stay, and other medical supplies need to stay at 4 degrees Celsius. In a regular aircraft, in order to maintain cold chain when you land, you need to keep the engine running, and then you would have a fuel issue. With a massive solar panel on top of this aircraft, you can provide cold chain right to delivery. We've been really blessed in having an awful lot of great supporters in the early stage. Usually the first round of funding that comes in comes from the brave, pioneering people who aren't afraid of investing in something that's unproven. That allows you to hire the people you need to prove that the technology works. And we've been able to hire great people. Why don't we go and meet some of the people and they'll walk you through the technology.
Hi, my name is Matthew Hines, and I'm the Vice President of Zen Air. I got a call from Jay Godzel, and he introduced me to a very unique project that he's been working on for a few years. And I do get a lot of calls from a lot of different people around the world that are wanting to do partnerships for designing and manufacturing very interesting products. But this product here is unique because it's something that's realistic. It's something that will work in the real field. But it's also something that's going to help a lot of people. We've been working with the Solarship engineers for quite some time now. And now that we have built and designed our fuselage, the real excitement now is put in the fuselage to the wing and seeing how it's going to fit together, seeing how it's going to fly.
Up, left, move back, down.
The 20-meter envelope.
It's huge.
Yeah, it is. This is a bush plane fuselage that's been customized for us much longer, so it can carry a very big wing.
All right.
And, so really, the traditional bush plane would end here. This is where the patient goes.
Okay.
You walk around here. So you got a pilot, a nurse, a stretcher in the back. And if you take the stretcher out, you've got enough room for 200 kilos of medical supplies. So we can get 220 square meters of solar on top,
That's
which
a
is,
lot.
you know, you've hosted the solar team in Africa.
Yeah.
That's the minimum they feel they need in order to make the medical supplies move.
Okay.
And then there's no need for fuel.
We're putting some helium into, it's a little bit low.
So the unique thing, obviously, about our aircraft is that it combines both aerodynamic lift, like airplanes that you're used to, but also buoyant lift, like the Goodyear blimp, for instance. And we have this unique package where our wing is inflated, and as it gets bigger, we get a lot more lift from the helium, and we also get a much larger area that we can put solar panels on.
So the nice thing with these solar panels are they're a lot thinner and a lot more powerful than, let's say, solar panels of 3 years ago.
So we have the sun hitting the solar panels, that then gets converted into electricity that powers our batteries, and then the batteries drive the propellers, which make the aircraft fly. Those batteries also have enough reserve capacity to allow the aircraft to fly even when the sunlight's marginal in the morning and evening.
We chose this one because of the high power per weight ratio it has. Continuous peak power is 30 kilowatts. It's a nice small size.
But this is a heavier than air aircraft. It is a bush plane. It wants to come down and land, and when you talk to the pilot, you say, you know, how short a landing can this do? It almost instantly wants to land. So you land inside a soccer field, and that opens up the world.
You can land in a very small distance. And I get near the end of the runway before I pull power because I know it's going to be stopping.
Africa is the perfect place to launch this because the medical benefits are obvious. It's got the most amount of sunshine, and it's a great place to do pioneering things.
It's a huge region, Eastern Congo, for example, just to take that as an example, where you have people who have no access to roads. You're cut off from hospitals, medical supplies. There's no infrastructure and no accessible fuel, and or at least when available, it is very expensive, close to $1,000 per barrel. We have contacts. We've established the networks, and we will be able to save lives.
Part of the money from this campaign goes to the medical supplies. We need to acquire medical supplies for each stop. The second thing that we need to do is we need to shore up the interior of the Solarship so that it can actually maintain cold chain. We've got about 5,000 kilometers to cover. We've got 10 partners, one every 500 kilometers. They determine where we'll go into the remote villages. They become the operating hub where we pick up the medical supplies and we deliver to the remote villages around each hub. And then we go to the next stop.
We will need to obviously hire some people locally, make sure we have spare parts, components, and organize the trip at each of the 10 stops.
I mean, what do you think the reaction is going to be in the rural areas when they see this cloud full of weird lights coming at them and landing in their soccer field?
Well, we'll have to look and have people on the ground to make sure there is room for us to land, because the reaction is for people to either completely afraid of this big thing coming out of the sky, or following it just to be able to touch it and see what exactly this thing is. So, make room on those soccer fields.
70 kilometers an hour.
Controlling it all the way. Controlling it beautifully.
As with any new technology, when you start, you have the dreamer visionaries who think that their idea is going to happen and change the world, and then you have large crowds of doubters who think you're doomed to fail. And as you can imagine, we've faced a large crowd of doubters who think we're not only doomed to fail, but we shouldn't even try. But then we in the early stages turned to a small crowd, and the crowd grew of people who become your supporters. And they aren't afraid to back you into the unknown. You start to prove things in small increments. We first started with radio controlled, and that flew nicely. Then we went into piloted, and that did not fly very nicely, but people kept supporting us because they could see the momentum. And if you go around to all of our members of the team, every one of them has to face doubters in their world. What's interesting is many of the Africans on the team are used to solving problems and used to overcoming a lot of doubt. And they provide us with a lot of optimism because they know the demand is there and it's so clear and we're so close. At first sight, this looks like a really big, ambitious project, almost impossibly big to some people, but we're 85% of the way there. We've got 85% of the funding, and now every dollar that comes in is eligible for a matching grant. That's the nice thing with momentum.
I know in Africa we have microfinance programs, microloans and things. We started working on a micro sponsorship program. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
An airship or a balloon has one big sponsor. What if we were to divide that up and spread the load out into, what if an individual could help sponsor this? And that would lower the cost of getting a ship and actually getting it active. Here's how it works. You can sponsor a patch of logo space on the Solarship envelope. Once you've sponsored some space on our campaign, you'll be able to send us an image and we'll upload it to our website, be it a photo, text, or logo of your choice. The images will stay on the solarship.org website for at least 5 years. Once the ship is ready to go, the images will then be reproduced as the banner on the leading edge of the Solarship that flies across Africa. There are many ways to participate. An example of how big the patches would be on the ship is this blue patch would cost $3,000, and this yellow patch would cost $10,000.
This idea really hit home when my younger brother went about 80 kilometers outside of Bujumbura. He had a medical condition, needed supplies, but couldn't get them, and he died.
Help us raise $1 million to complete our medical mission in Africa. Take a look at our story to see how you can sponsor a piece of the ship or join us on the African adventure.